Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadari. Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanacharya. Yamuna Tira Vanacharya. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadari. Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanacharya. Yamuna Tira Vanacharya. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupad Brahmhangsa Brahvirakacharya Asadhara Satushi Shiman. His Divine Grace Kalesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Raj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hariva Slava Zabrani Bhaktam Slava Shigurui Shigurangi. Oma Gana Tamarandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksura Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Pandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Vrajana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakan Svitamscha. Hey Krishna Karna Sindhu Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishubhanu Sudadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakapa Tubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranitinanda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 3, Krishna is the source of all incarnations, text 31. 32. Oh, they changed it. It says 31 there. Don't believe everything you read. Atak param yat avyaktam avyuda guna brimhitam adrishta shruta vastutvat sajivo yat punarbhavaha atak param yat avyaktam avyuda guna brimhitam adrishta shruta vastuvat sajiva yat punarabhavaha atak param yat avyaktam avyuda guna brimhitam adrishta shruta vastuvat Ladies. Oyat Punarabhava Atak Param Yat Avyaktam Avyuda Guna Brimhitam Adrishta Shruta Vastuvat Sajiva Yat Punarabhava Ata this Param beyond Yat which Avyaktam unmanifested Avyuda without formal shape Guna Brimhitam affected by the qualities Adrishta unseen Ashuta unheard Vastudvat being like that Saha that Jiva living being Yat that which Punarbhava takes birth repeatedly. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Beyond this gross conception of form is another subtle conception of form, which is without formal shape and is unseen, unheard, and unmanifest. The living being has his form beyond this subtlety, otherwise he could not have repeated births. Please repeat. Beyond this gross conception of form is another subtle conception of form, which is without formal shape and is unseen, unheard, and unmanifest. The living being has this form beyond this subtlety, otherwise he could not have repeated births. Purport. As the gross cosmic manifestation is conceived as the gigantic body of the Lord, so also there is a conception of his subtle form, which is simply realized without being seen, heard, or manifested. But in fact, all these gross or subtle conceptions of the body are in relation with the living beings. The living being has a spiritual form beyond this gross material or subtle psychic existence. The gross body and psychic functions cease to act as soon as the living being leaves the visible gross body. In fact, we say that the living being has gone away because he is unseen and unheard. Even when the gross body is not acting, when the living being is in sound sleep, we know that he is within the body by his breathing. So the living being's passing away from the body does not mean that there is no existence of the living soul. It is there, otherwise how could he repeat his births and again? The conclusion is that the Lord is eternally existent in his transcendental form, which is neither gross nor subtle like that of the living being. His body is never to be compared to the gross and subtle bodies of the living being. All such conceptions of God's body are imaginary. The living being has his eternal spiritual form, which is conditioned only by his material contamination. So the text again. Atak param yad avyaktam avyoda guna brimhitam adrishta shuta vastutvat sajiva yat punarbhava. Beyond this gross conception of form is another subtle conception of form, which is without formal shape and is unseen, unheard, and unmanifest. The living being has his form beyond this subtlety, otherwise he could not have repeated births. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatundeve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskyatyade Satarane. As usual, what's emphasized is that we're eternal spiritual beings, and that Krishna is also an eternal spiritual being. And we have a gross and subtle material body, or at least we have a gross and subtle material, we're in a gross and subtle material body, and due to material contamination, we identify ourselves with this gross and subtle material existence. Krishna also has a universal form, but Krishna doesn't identify himself with the universal form. Nor is he, because he's not contaminated by any material energy. Now, as explained here, whether we're the soul or the Supreme Soul, no one is actually affected by the material energy. But due to our contamination, we experience the material energy. And we identify with it. And we desire according to it. We're influenced by it. In this way we become entangled. But actually, anaditvam, nirgunadvat, paramatmayam avyam, Shrira stopikontia na karoti na lipute. That those who can see with the eyes of eternity, in other words, with the eyes of reality, they can understand that the soul is eternal, transcendental, and beyond the modes of material nature. Despite contact with the material body or Arjuna, the soul is neither doing anything nor is it entangled. Not doing anything means we're not doing anything directly material. We're beyond the material energy. Just like if we watch a movie and we're not doing anything except for watching the movie. We're not participating in the movie. Now, if we become so absorbed in the movie that we think we become a princess or a prince, or maybe even Godzilla or Frankenstein, whatever our mood is, it doesn't mean that we've actually become those persons who are in the movie, but we feel like we are. Otherwise, why would anyone go and watch a movie? If you went to see a movie and all you saw was different snapshots and you saw how they were moving along and it appeared that it was real, it wouldn't appear so real when you just saw one. If it went slower and you saw one screen, next screen, next screen, you wouldn't even take it seriously. You'd realize it's just a movie. And what to speak if you were actually there in the production and you saw they put the wings on the good fairy, and you know the good fairy and she's not such a good fairy, then you wouldn't take the movie very seriously because it would be spoiled. Similarly, because of illusion, we're watching this movie and we're actually taking it seriously, that's all. Now, how not to take it seriously? We have to take Krishna seriously. In other words, if we identify ourselves with the spiritual experience, then we'll no longer identify ourselves with the material experience, because shadow and light. If there's light, there can't be shadow. And if there's shadow, that means there's an absence of light. So, Jnanena tu tad agyanam yesham nashitam atmanaha tesham adityavaj jnanam prakashiti tatparam. When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything, just like the sun lights up everything in the daytime. So here it's emphasized that neither we're the body, nor is Krishna the universal form. It is said, Avajananti mamhudha manushim tanum ashrityam param bhavam ajanando mama bhuta maheshwaram. That the fools, they deride me at my descending in this human-like form. They do not know my transcendental nature and my supreme dominion over all that be. In other words, Krishna comes in what seems like a material form. And since this conditioned soul knows nothing beyond material existence, he assumes that Krishna's body is like our body. And of course, Krishna doesn't want to disappoint anyone, because sometimes he manifests things that appear that he has a material body. Like in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, when Bhishma was shooting arrows at Krishna, then it appeared that Krishna's body was being pierced by the arrows. And he was decorated, there was apparently blood coming from the wounds, etc. But this was just Krishna's doing to make it real. Otherwise, if the arrow hit Krishna's body and flowers came out, it would be a little bit rasa basa. It would spoil the whole mood of chivalrous rasa with Bhishma. So there had to be some kind of display of what appeared to be something material. But why can't Krishna have blood come out from the wound? He said universe is coming out from his body, from the pores of his body. He can do anything he wants. But it says that Krishna felt these arrows just like when two lovers get together and they bite each other. They don't eat each other, actually, but they just bite each other. So that's supposed to be enjoyable. So similarly, when Krishna felt the arrows piercing his body, he took it as like a lover's bite from Bhishma Dev. And indeed, that's what it was. It was because Bhishma Dev had no animosity towards Krishna. He was a 100% pure devotee. But for the non-devotees, they appear, oh, just see, you claim Krishna has a spiritual body, but he's bleeding. How can a spiritual body bleed? Well, how can a spiritual body, from the pores of his body, produce universes? Do you know anyone who can produce a universe from their body? From this material body? Therefore, when we hear about Krishna's pastimes, we don't generally hear Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan because it appears to us like a fairy tale. That some witch comes, Putana, offers Krishna some poison, Kalakuta poison. Krishna sucks on her breast and sucks out her life air and the Kalakuta poison, and she dies screaming and expands herself, I guess it would be around 40 kilometers. So who do we know who's died within our experience that after they died, they've expanded themselves 40 kilometers? Do you know anyone like that? And then Krishna was playing on her just as like a playground. So, if you read this to a child, generally speaking, they'll take it as the mythology. It's kind of like a story. Goldilocks and the Seven Bears. I don't remember what it was. Anyhow, Little Red Riding Hood. You've heard of Little Red Riding Hood? Bringing back memories. So they take it something like that, some kind of like fairy tale. Therefore, it's not advised we start immediately with the 10th canto. It's advised we go first of all to the first canto, which we're on now. And even this is a little inconceivable. It's talking about some universal form, but at least it's something more direct experience, because we're here in the universal form. Welcome to the universal form. And this form, although it's not said here to be one of Krishna's eternal forms, still it's acting like his form. Just like we're not the body, but by our desire, so many activities are going on. So in that sense, there's some connection between our desire and what the material nature is manifested. Similarly, there's a connection between Krishna's desire and what the material nature is manifesting. It's not independent of Krishna, although it's not Krishna. Just like someone may press the button on a big machine, and the machine works. It produces a car. Now the person who pressed the button is not producing the car directly, but unless he pressed the button, the car wouldn't come out. So Krishna, by his desire, the material nature works, but the material nature works according to its rules. Of course, Krishna created the rules. But still, Krishna is aloof. And therefore, although they blame Krishna for so many things, for practically everything, we say he's God, so automatically everything that's going on, we blame Krishna for. Except for anything that goes all right, of course that's because we're good people. Anything that goes wrong is Krishna's fault. But that's why Krishna has to explain how he's, in one sense, in charge of everything. Sarva Bhutani Kondiya Murtiyaksham Bhavantiya Tasam Brahma Mahadhyonir Aham Bija Prajapita. That's the wrong verse. Anyhow, it's close. Chapter 8. Let's try the other one. See. Well, Krishna, many times he says the same thing, but. Maya Dakshena Prakriti. Oh, that's 7. Maya Dakshena Prakriti Sute Sutrashram. 10. 7, 10. Nine, 7. Sarabhutani Kondeya Prakriti Yanti Mamika Kapashe Panastani Kabadav Srijam Reham Sarabhutani Kondeya more Prakriti Yanti Mamikam. O son of Kunti, at the end of the millennium, all material manifestations enter into my nature. At the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I create them again. So just conceive of this this one material universe that we're in. At the end of the end of the millennium, it enters into Krishna. It doesn't mean everything enters as we see it right now. Krishna gets fat at the end of the millennium. He gains a lot of weight. It's not like that. And then finally, when he breathes out, he loses the weight. No, before everything is just like. When we eat something, say you eat an apple, hopefully you don't swallow it. That's why it's advised that we chew it. Now, if we ate the apple and it fell into our stomach, then it would be very uncomfortable because the stomach doesn't have any teeth. So you can't really grind up the apple very easily. So it may sit there. Now we're supposed to chew it, and when it chews it, it turns into a liquid form, and it's supposed to be easily digestible in that form. So similarly, before this material manifestation is dissolved, then there's a process by which it's destroyed, even before it enters into Krishna. So it enters into its original nature, which is quite subtle. The scientists say that 99% of what we see, what we think is solid, is actually just space. So we don't see things as they really are. But when everything gets dissolved, when there's rain, I think there's sun for so many thousands of years, blazing sun, 10 times hotter than the present sun, everything's burnt to ashes. Then there's rain for thousands of years, and everything is washed away, and there's nothing practically left. And then the coverings and everything else, everything is dissolved, and then that enters into Krishna in its original subtler form. Unlimited universes, practically speaking, enter into Krishna like that. So Krishna finds no inconvenience when that happens because it's his energy. Then Prakritim Swamavashtavya Vishvijami Punak Punak Buddha Gramamimam Kritsnam Avaisham Prakritir Vashat. This whole cosmic order is under me. Under my will it is automatically manifested again and again. Under my will is annihilated at the end. So Krishna has expanded himself as Karanadakashai Vishnu. And so Krishna in Vrindavan is not disturbed. Now, if we one day were dancing with Krishna as a gopi, the next day we had to come back and manufacture the universe, there would be a lot, we think, maybe I should hand this responsibility of making universes to someone else. It's really interfering with my relation with Srimati Radharani. No, but Krishna is not like that. If we had to do things like that, our mood would change, our perspective would change, everything would change. We would be in completely different, having a different experience, whether we were dancing with Srimati Radharani and the gopis, or we were creating a universe. But for Krishna, it's one sense, when he expands himself as Garbhodakashai Vishnu, or Mahavishnu, Karanadakashai Vishnu, he keeps the same mood. As a matter of fact, Karnadakshay Vishnu, he simply thinks himself to be a servant of Krishna. So he's always thinking of Krishna himself, even when he's creating the universe. He's just thinking of Krishna. Of course, here it says it automatically gets done. He just has to breathe. Now when we breathe, nothing auspicious comes out usually. When we breathe in, nothing auspicious goes, well, something auspicious may go in. We get some oxygen. So Krishna simply has to breathe, and everything else, parasya shaktir, vividaiva shuyate, swabhavati jnana bala kriyacha, everything else is done automatically by the workings of his energies. And for Krishna, breathing, it's not a big thing. It's just normal. Even in the spiritual world, people breathe. But they breathe in bliss. The air, the atmosphere there is full of bliss. There's no factories there. Everything there is pure, including the air. So he breathes out and he breathes in, and so many universes enter into his body in their original subtle form, and then he breathes out and so many universes are manufactured. Nichamatani karmanini bandhanti dhananjaya udasinadvat asinam asaktam teshu karmasu. That all this work cannot bind me. I'm ever detached, seated as though neutral. So Krishna is breathing in, he's breathing out. He's expanding himself as Garbhodakshay Vishnu. He's expanding himself as the super soul, so that he knows what's going on. But he's like the perfect GBC. He knows everything that's going on, but he doesn't interfere with what's going on. Because for a person in this world, if he knows everything that's going on, he doesn't do anything. He gets twice as much blame. You know what's going on, you don't do anything. Therefore, so he doesn't get blamed. Krishna keeps on coming as incarnations. Tell people, yes, you're getting the results of your karma, but that's not my fault. That's your fault. And if you surrender to me, your karma will go away. You won't be entangled anymore in the material world. I'm not doing this to torture you. It's not like some father, his child didn't obey him, so he hires some cruel agent to come and chastise the child. And he's watching, hey, kid, you're getting what you deserve. Don't complain. Krishna's not like that. He has to do it because the souls want it. And at the same time, out of compassion, he wants them to wake up and stop the suffering. Therefore, he himself personally comes, millennium after millennium, sends his agents, trying to tell the soul, wake up, follow my instruction. Just because I'm God, you can't reject it. Which is like the mood nowadays. If some superior tells us to do something, we immediately think, I'm not going to surrender. Who are they to tell me what to do? Why are they lording it over me? Immediately reject the instruction. Because we're contaminated with demoniac consciousness. Well, we think, I'm showing my independence, I'm not being repressed. So, Krishna knows that mentality. And so when the demons and the demigods were churning the ocean of milk to get nectar out of it, and they used Vasuki, who's a huge serpent, who's a dragon. The original dragons, by the way. Vasuki's the dragon. He's the original dragon. He emanates fire from his mouth. So, Vasuki agreed to become the churning, not the rod, but the rope. and he was emanating fire. So Krishna told the demigods, immediately take the head of the snake, go to the front of the snake, the head of the snake, and take that position. So the demons had the tail of the snake. And they started to complain immediately. The demigods got the head, we got the tail. This is we got the low end of the deal. So they complained. Krishna said, "All right." The demigods said, "Don't. If the demons want the head, then give them the head. We'll take the humble behind. Yes, demons, you're so elevated. Let us surrender to you and take the tail of the snake." So Vasuki, the demons took the head, the demigods took the tail, and Vasuki was emanating fire, so it burnt the demons. They got what they deserved. Of course, the demigods also got burnt, but not quite as badly. So we say black, Krishna says black, and we say white. Krishna says white, we say black. Krishna says surrender to me, and we say forget it. You're the last person we're going to surrender to. You're too puffed up. You think you're God. Your mother didn't train you very well. She spoiled you. So, we have to understand Krishna's position, that he's in charge of everything, but he's neutral. And Maya dakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam. The material nature is working under his direction, but he's neutral. He's like the judge. If you do something good, the judge is supposed to give you some good result. If you do something bad, the judge gives you a bad result. But the judge doesn't like you or hate you. It's because of your activities that you get the result. Similarly, Krishna doesn't hate anyone, he doesn't like anyone, but he's giving the results everyone deserves. Unless one becomes a devotee. Samaham sarvabhuteshu nanve dveshtosti napriyaha ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya mayate teshu chapyam. I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I'm equal to anyone. But anyone who renders service to me in devotion is a friend to me, and I'm a friend to him. So Krishna, in the material energy, he's just rewarding people according to their desires, and as they're manifested, desires are manifested through the gross body also, according to activities. But as a devotee, he takes he especially takes care of the devotee. Try to encourage him to give up his material desires, material activities, and to take up spiritual activities. He awards, for instance, if we perform devotional service in the right attitude, then Krishna, he awards us with transcendental realizations and bliss, and everything becomes clear and encouraging. Or it says the second-class devotee, his experience in Krishna consciousness that becomes enlivening and enlightening. So Krishna helps like that. It's not impersonal. It's not automatic. You do something, Krishna automatically has to award us. But out of his compassion, he does it. Therefore, the conclusion is we have to understand how we have a relation with Krishna right at this moment, and how Krishna is trying to help us have a normal life again in the spiritual world or in spiritual consciousness, and how we're entangled in the material nature, and how unjustly we accuse Krishna of putting us here. Well, actually, Krishna is doing everything to get out of us here. The whole example is that you go up to a tree and you grab hold of it, and you say, "Let me go, let me go, let me go." But the tree is not holding on to the person person's holding on to the tree. And someone comes along and says, "My dear sir, what can I do for you?" So the man says, "Well, this tree got me. Pull me off the tree. Tell the tree to let me go." You go, "Dear sir, actually the tree is not holding on to you. You're holding on to the tree." "Oh, you and your philosophy. You're probably a Hare Krišna or something." All this philosophy. Just tell him to let me go. So the person's holding onto the tree eternally, accusing the tree of holding onto him, but he won't let the tree go. So Krishna simply comes and says, well, why don't you let the tree go and come back and join in your normal activities rather than just holding onto this tree for your existence. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, because you were talking about this surrender, and in the West we really don't have this culture of accepting some authorities and surrendering to some authorities. So how can we introduce it, or how can we get it? That.
Well, you tell people, unless you surrender to Krishna, you may come back as a dog, or of course people like dogs. No? You may come back as a cockroach. That they may think, well, cockroaches. I don't like cockroaches. I want to come back as a cockroach. Oh, Krishna, birth, death, old age, and disease. Before we get into the encouraging, blissful life in the spiritual world, there's this discouragement of birth, death, old age, and disease, suffering in the material world. So half Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is talking about the bliss of surrendering to him, and half of it he's talking about the horrors if you don't. So we have to have a mixture of both of them for people to take it seriously. If you just talk about how blissful the spiritual world is, people won't take it seriously because they think they're in bliss. They're in bliss. You have to explain to people how you're suffering, and then some people may accept it. Yes, I'm suffering. Those are the people most eligible to take Krishna consciousness somewhat seriously, until they come to the Hare Krishna movement, and after some time, they think that they're not suffering anymore, because they've given up the sinful activities that are the most causing them suffering. And then they become a vegetarian. They learn how to cook nice prasadam. They used to eat pizza before, but not like prasadam pizza. Prasadam ice cream. So they think, well, I'm not suffering anymore. I'm enjoying here. I don't want to leave. And then they fall back into, hopefully they advance gradually, but sometimes they just stay there for some time. And then they fall back into suffering again. They come back to, oh, Krishna, help me. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Anything else? Yes.
Hare Krishna. When Krishna inhaled all universes, what happened with jivas that still remaining?
Well, they get a good rest. They also enter into Krishna's body, but in their spirit, they don't give up their subtle body when they enter into Krishna's spiritual body. Their subtle body remains. So they go to sleep for 303, well, it depends, but the whole creation is the big annihilation is 311 trillion 40 billion years. So they remain asleep during that time. Probably one of them, when the next manifestation, they still want to go back to sleep again. That was enough, Last creation was really difficult. I need some more rest. I set my alarm. Why did it go off? So they go to sleep. They dream. So if you're tired, don't worry. You'll get a good rest soon. All right. Kuala Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande Haribol.